how do we view camping? It's really a different kind of perspective, and I don't know if you do it here in Australia like we do it in the States. But about 2 years ago, we decided our voice was not really being heard in Washington, D.C. We'd go up there and lobby and try to get into the door of a very powerful senator or U.S. congressman. It really wasn't working too well. We formed a coalition that we call the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. It's made up of 30 different outdoor recreation companies like ours. And through that, we were able to commission about $1 million economic impact study. And with those numbers in our pocket, we were able to start opening doors. And you know, we have a lot to be proud of as campgrounds, but we just know that the numbers didn't support the things that we were trying to get done in Washington, D.C. So what we ended up doing was conducting this economic impact study, third party, and the results of it, as you see here, outdoor recreation in the U.S. represents 2.2% of what we call the gross domestic product. It's a measurement of economic output. We support 4.5 million U.S. jobs. We contribute, and this is a very important number, $734 billion to the U.S. economy. Those are huge, huge numbers. In case you're wondering how big, outdoor recreation, when you measure it on a GDP basis, is bigger than agricultural industry, the petroleum industry, computer electronics, big pharma, and utilities. Now, how many of you would think that outdoor recreation measured up like it does against those industries? It's huge. And the reason, I know I'm giving you a lot of U.S. perspective here, but much of what you're going to see from me here, I think, is universally translatable to Australia. I think a lot of the metrics, these numbers obviously are not, but what I'm going to do is try to use Anthony's idea this morning, give you a little journey through what we see in the United States in the camping industry. Just a couple other notations. When you take that $734 billion industry and pare it down a little bit more to just what we call the RV industry, or the caravan industry here in Australia, we combine those that are the manufacturers, the dealers, and the campgrounds, and $114 billion economic impact from those. 30,000 RV-related businesses, 600,000 jobs. Again, 32 billion in wages, big numbers. The economic impact of just the caravan parks and campgrounds is 14 billion in economic impact, 130,000 jobs, 2 billion in federal and local taxes. So this is the language that we use to speak to our legislators. And when we use numbers from a third-party impact study like this, it's amazing how those doors flew open when I was up there a few weeks ago in Washington. The state of the U.S. campground industry right now is very, very positive, almost growing on all cylinders when you measure the growth. One of the things that we're seeing that's a phenomenon that in my 9 years as CEO we haven't seen is the great number of new people coming into our industry to become campground owners from some other walk of business life. And we're tracking those, what we call startup businesses, ground-up campgrounds, where they're digging dirt for the first time. And the numbers are quite phenomenal. We've just noted 20 of them in the first 6 months of this year in 7 states. Company like KOA, big brand in the United States, 500 franchisees. They've had 7 consecutive years of financial growth. And I can go to any one of the corporate partners that we have, ELS, sun, all of them are growing exponentially, double-digit year-over-year growth. The research that we've done, and hopefully you can learn a little bit from this, shows that Wi-Fi remains the #1 amenity among our patrons, followed closely by anything water. If you have a lazy river, a pool, water play areas, that always seems to rank #2 in popularity. And something that's recently come about are zip lines. Do you have zip lines here? I don't know if I'm even using a term that you're familiar with. What do you call it? Okay, I like that. So, you know, if you're an innovator and a person that is looking to attract new revenue streams, I would say focus on those three for sure. The glamping industry, we're going to talk about it a little bit later after I speak, is another phenomenon that is starting to grow by leaps and bounds. These are premium accommodations, things like safari tents, tree houses, teepees, yurts. Again, I don't know if I'm using a term you've ever heard. And old Airstreams. Airstream you've seen them, they look like tuna fish cans, basically, but they're aluminum exteriors, and they're wildly popular right now. If you can get one that's 40 or 50 years old and renovate it and put it on your park and treat it as a glamping unit, you're going to make a lot of money from that. When Glamping Hub, which is an association that exists around the world, when they gauged their audience, 34% of campers polled said that they had an interest in glamping. 1 out of 3. So if this is something you're thinking about doing, I would say it's probably a good endeavor for you. When we look at the things that draw the camper out into our parks, certainly the consumer confidence is an important factor. Right now it's riding in the U.S. at record levels at 125%. That's what we call the Consumer Confidence Index. Our Federal Reserve that monitors economic policy in our country just declared, and this is kind of rare for them to do that, but they are going to maintain rate flexibility throughout the balance of 2019, which most economists interpret as they're not going to move the interest rate any higher than it already is, meaning there's more money available for discretionary things like camping. All good things that spell a good year for us as an industry. The other thing that we like is that petrol prices are dropping. Year over year, they've dropped about 17% in our country. I don't know if that's happening here or not, but no? And you know, it's a flexible commodity in the world, so depending on what's going on over in the Middle East, those prices could jump up again very easily. But the important thing that we noticed from our research is that the typical camper, 70% of them, camp within 150 miles from their home. So obviously, if the gas prices are trending downward, there's a good chance that they're going to feel more compelled to go out and patronize your business. The RVs that they travel in are also hitting great strides in our country. We've had 8 years of consecutive manufacturing growth. Last year set a record. 500,000 RVs came off, caravans, I know that's the word you use, came off the assembly line. We've never had that number before. We have a huge industry event. It's an RV show that's held every year in Tampa, Florida in January. And this year was the highest purchase intent in the show's history. These are all great signs that we're in a wonderful, wonderful industry. And some would say it's recession-proof. Back in 2008, 2009, it didn't grow exponentially like I'm showing you now, but it didn't falter either. The campground industry has been very resilient. So let me walk through a few demographic points of interest with you. And again, I believe strongly that these are trends that probably resemble what you might see here in Australia. Let's talk about the evolution of the U.S. camper. Since 2014, there's been a 29% increase across the United States in households that camp. When we look at the demographic makeup a little deeper, we track what kind of accommodation these people are enjoying. Tenters still represent 60% of the accommodation of our camping population. And RVs or caravans represent 24%. The sector that is growing the fastest are what we call park models. I've never liked the name. Doesn't describe it at all, what it is. It's basically a cabin on wheels. You put a skirt around it, and it looks very attractive. It is considered a recreational vehicle, an RV, in our definition in our country. Regarding age, you look at the right side of the pie here, and the millennials and the Gen Xers represent over half of the campers that are coming to our campgrounds. The boomers used to be a much larger percentage, but as they age, their percentage gets lower and lower. And when you talk about how to creatively and innovatively market to get more campers to your place of business, this is the group I would be aiming at. I know in our country this is a big, big challenge because millennials especially are pretty picky people. They give you one, maybe two chances to get it right, and then they're off doing other things, not in your campground if you don't get it right. So attracting this group and keeping them is the biggest challenge that we face. Ethnically, Caucasians, 73%. And then you have the breakout of the Hispanics, the African Americans, and the Asians. And while these percentages have come up in recent years, they're nowhere near what they should be in our estimation. I belong to a diversity coalition, and we're meeting in August with all three of these groups. And the reason we're meeting, they're all primarily based in San Francisco. Big surprise. And this was astounding to me. Especially the African Americans have told us that they are afraid to go out into the outdoors. Afraid. And so we want to understand that better. We're going to go actually talk to them and try to figure it out because that's a very important, affluent group in most cases, very inner city oriented, and drawing them out of the inner city and getting past that fear is what we need to do. And I don't know if that's a situation here or not, but for us it's a big challenge, and the marketers need to put their innovation caps on and really try to make this happen. Online booking on the rise. This should make Newbook very happy. 73% increase in online reservations since 2014. Hard to believe it's a pretty recent phenomenon that people have been given the ability to book their reservation online. We still have a lot of mom and pop campgrounds that do the reservations manually, if you can believe that. They have a big calendar in front of them and they're erasing with a pencil, and it's just kind of archaic. We think this number is going to continue to climb. When we look at who's buying the RVs out there, millennials represent 8.6% of the buyer market. And that's up 66% year over year. These people are affluent. They're coming into their new jobs. They're making six-figure salaries. And we want them to keep rolling into campgrounds. So Marketing to this group is so important. Of millennial buyers, 30% are single and 50% are couples. This kind of surprised me too. Doesn't matter if they're connected with a partner or not. They're out there. 30% are single. And lastly, what are they buying? Towables. Small, lightweight trailers are the most popular amongst all campers last year. 88% of market sales were towables in 2018. So the big Class A RV that you see rumbling down the highways, those are not as popular these days. And again, I think it ties to the millennial. They want to be fast on their feet. They want to be very mobile. They want to be able to get to where they're going in a hurry with a lightweight towable behind them. And then van life Class B sales are also climbing, rising 26% in 2018. My last point, and I'll just say it as I feel it right now. Brad and Shay and the Newbook team that welcomed me to my trip to Australia for the first time this week have been phenomenal, and I've learned a lot about how to conduct a conference by these people. I must have 20 different things that I'm going to bring to our conference, which is held every year the first week in November, and we alternate our locations. This year it's in Knoxville, Tennessee, on the east side of the United States, and I really invite you to come, because please come. Yeah. Please come. I don't know if that's a clap of I'm planning to come, but Tennessee's known for its moonshine, if you've ever heard of that. It's a very strong alcohol. But we'll show you how we do our bash, and I look forward to seeing you there. So thank you for your time.